Hello, welcome to Learn Think Share, and I'm happy to be back with the Gordons, Mr. Richard Gordon and Mr. Galit Gordon.
Hello.
Hello, let's begin. You are the mediator, so you're in the middle.
Yes. Today we have a subject that many people would like to know a little bit more about, and it's firing with respect. And Learn, Think, Share will help you navigate through those tough conversations. So, the first question about firing anyone is why is it important to approach firing with empathy and respect?
Actually, like when you look at the firing decisions, are the toughest decisions to make. But who gets fired is most important question. Who gets fired? And nowadays, the person who gets fired is someone who is lacking skills. That's one obvious reason. And the second is the company lost its funding. That's the second most obvious reason, and both are equally strong. So I think we should not make firing an emotional procedure, because when it comes to private enterprises, I think even though there are a lot of laws, actually there are a lot of laws which control that also, but firing should never be an emotional decision for both for the person who is getting fired as well as the person who is firing it. And I think we need to have look at it in different ways. What I'll suggest is to help the person whose career decision you're making is by giving them good choices outside. So the company should make an effort to help him find a new job also. Just don't let them dry hanging outside. That's what I feel.
Yeah, just along the same lines. I think the key is to having a system. If you have a system with your company, the workers are clear on what the expectations are, and they know whether they're meeting them or not. So when you have the conversation, you can do it in kindness, and they already know. Gee, you weren't on time. You didn't meet your deadlines. You didn't perform, for the clients. So that's the first step. That shouldn't be a surprise to the person. Like that's the empathy part. Let them know all along. Not bam, 6 months later you're awful. Get out the door. And then also sometimes maybe it's not a fit for your company. Maybe they will be a better fit at another company, and you can help guide them. And the same thing, like Adi was saying, there are business decisions. You have to cut a whole department, right? So the whole department wasn't bad. It's just financially that department, the projects, what they're working on, funding is not there. So you'll help relocate them elsewhere, and then it'll come back to you in the future. You might use them again later.
Okay, those are very good points. The second question is what's the first step to prepare for a termination conversation?
I think the way people do it right now is something very unique. Nowadays, people do it. Nobody communicates in person nowadays. It's just a letter receives or text get received, and people let go. This is what happens today nowadays. And because the tolerance level of the companies have gone down, the pressures on maintaining profitability is high, which is a natural thing. So I think the first step in preparing for a termination conversation is to be in a happy mood by the person who is going to deliver the bad news. Number one, and avoid small talk. Let the person know why the conversation is happening beforehand, and because it's adding insult to the injury, that you're talking about the baseball and then you're talking suddenly about, oh, we have to make a tough decision, you let go. I think that small talk culture has to go now. It's no longer time for small talk culture, because social media is filled with small talk now. This is time to make a serious conversation. I think the best way is to prepare the options ready for the future of that employee, that these are the options I think where I can help you, and then we should have that conversation. I think that's more helpful conversation. It requires a lot of mindset change over there.
Yeah, very accurate. I just a little bit more of that. Just know the facts. Know who you're dealing with, and stick to the facts. It's not personal. But again, a lot of times people go in and they don't know the facts, and then they start winging it, and that's even more insulting when the employee thinks this person doesn't even know what I do. You don't need to be an expert at what they do, but at least know the facts, and then present them, and they'll grasp it, and then it's more humane that way.
Okay, that sounds good. And next question. How can a manager deliver the news in a way that minimizes emotional harm?
Great question. Actually, the first step is to understand the difficulties that a person might face after this decision. You need to know that. The hiring manager needs to know that. And if they don't know that, then at least be culturally sensitive, wherever they come from. And the best thing which helps here is God, the word God. I know people will not like it, but I'll tell you one thing that when somebody says God has sent you unique, you're very special, you're a wonderful person. Everyone, in some ways or the other, believes in God. It can be anyone or any form or any way they believe some superior power. When you invoke that, that minimizes the resistance in the person who is going to get the bad news. And I think that's where we should prepare. So more being more spiritual, being more uh, here here the cultural language, all those things don't count if the somebody has a family. The easiest job is to fire a bachelor or some bachelorette because they have less emotional connection to what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. And I
Dependency.
agree. Along the same lines, it's just to treat them with respect, right? Because I always looked at it just because they couldn't do the job, just because they couldn't perform, just because they didn't meet their sales quota, doesn't mean that they're not worthy, right? And I think that's the big thing. Sometimes people come in and it's like they try to crush the person. You didn't make it selling cars. You didn't make it, on the Wall Street floor. And that might be true. They might not have done well, but that you don't want to crush them. You don't want to crush them like a bug. So treat them with respect. Maybe this isn't the field for you. Maybe you're not into finance. Maybe you're not a closer. And then give them helpful inputs on maybe you can go on the other side, back office. So respect is always the key.
Okay, very good. What role does active listening play during a firing conversation?
Great role. I think we all should be actively listening all the time.
Mhm.
That should be a habit, not just during the firing time. But it does because somebody may come with a lot of emotional uh, response, and at that time, it's not important to be analytical because when you're analytical, you're challenging people. At that time, you have to sensitize yourself for delivering a news which may not help the other person, may not help. Sometimes it's happy, like somebody gets fired, they say, "Great, I'll come and collect the money here and I'll get a new job in 1 week." So they're happy also. Some people are very happy. But the just sensitize yourself, be empathetic to the other person. And the third thing is understand that the mindset of the other person is going to fundamentally change from today. And also the person who's delivering the bad news is just a messenger, number one. He needs to know that they might hire back that person in future as well. He may upskill themselves or cross skill themselves, or she may cross skill them, then they may hire back. So presenting that opportunity is a very important aspect in this decision, in this communication.
Yeah, great points. And as Adi said, active listening should be, managers, CEOs, anybody in a leadership position. That should be the path they take all the time. And then there's a fine line where the skill comes in, where learn, think, and share will help you with the mindset because you have to be able to control it. You don't want the person to go off on an emotional tangent. And it's very easy to do. They start getting into the emotional side and then they engage you in addressing the emotional issues. So you have to be able to listen, be sympathetic, be empathetic, and then quickly bring it back to why you're sitting at the table. Because it would be very easy for the young managers and employees know that they'll take them all off on an emotional path, and then they say Joe did it and Sally did it, and why is Harry staying? And you just need to be able to bring it right back to the main agenda of your meeting.
Okay. Now, how should managers handle the logistics after delivering the news?
Most of the logistics are already taken care before the news is delivered. Everybody knows what's going to happen. All accesses are gone. The security drill is already taken place. Your laptops are frozen, and you can't take the laptop away. And I'm just talking about the software industry, so we know how it goes over there. And other places also might be happening the same way. I don't know, but generally all these things are taken care. And I think during the final deliverance of the news, I think things are handed back in a package. uh, but I would say something else can be done. Like from learn think share perspective, we can say something else can be done that make the firing process as attractive as the hiring process. So introduce an orientation class, take people there, and explain why the decision is being taken, because 90% of decisions are not taken on skills or experience. 90% decisions are taken on the financial viability of the company. 90% decisions. Only 10% are extreme cases where there is general rule. General, like in software industry, there's a rule. Every year, 10% people have to be let off because they want to maintain that cycle and bringing in new talent. So other industries work in a much different way. Anything to do with logistics or physical work, they depend on these employees a lot. So decision is much more harder in those places.
And we're in changing times. So now with people working remotely, some people don't have an office. They never went to an office. The managers don't work in an office. So like Adi was saying at the start, the remote and emails and text are become the thing. So if that's what works in your industry, yes, but I am a believer in the face to face. And like Adi said, speak to the individual, just give them a brief explanation of why it happened based on logistics. We're moving all of our operations overseas, and that's definitely the best way to do it. Because as a company, you don't want to be coming off heavy and unkind and cruel. It's not about that. So in person, break the news to them, and then they move on. And like I said, every industry is the same. Whether it's a shoe company or not, the security's involved, the stuff is packed up in the office. It's like, here you go, thank you, first exit to the parking lot.
Yeah. Well, this brings us to the last question. What can leaders do to support the rest of the team after someone is fired?
That's a great question, because this is what you deal with. This is the worst thing to deal with, because when somebody is let go, the team becomes very wary. Either they perform better or they look for other jobs. So this decision is largely, that's why it is kept private. People disappear. Oh, he stopped coming from yesterday. And they say, oh, he's been sick. That's why privacy is maintained here. And but I think the rest of the team needs to be taken into confidence. And I like the old way that the right hand should not know what the left hand is doing, and because that maintains the team for the employee. Because we have to think from the both from the employer perspective and the employee perspective. Employee perspective is personal decision one to one, but employer perspective is a very hard decision, because they've invested thousands of dollars in this person, and letting go of some person is not an easy decision, because all the investment goes, unless that person is really incapable. Otherwise, it's a happy decision generally. So unhappy decision in generally. So what I'll say is that my advice or my suggestion will be, don't let the team know, and later on disclose the team thing.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And coming from the security side of it, to me, privacy is essential. The conversation between you, A and B, and it doesn't need to go anywhere else. Of course, people are going to notice they're missing, but unless it actually impacts the movement of the company, like they had a key role as a leader, and now you have to assign a new leader, a new project manager. But in general, if the person's just a regular person in the mix, they're not with us any longer, so you don't need to share anymore. You don't need to tell anybody anybody's business. And in essence, it doesn't impact them, so they don't need to know. Of course, if you're redoing a whole division, of course, you're going to have to come in front of the company and say, we're moving away from R&D. We're moving away from this. We're going to outsource. But in the average one-off person, it's just privacy. Don't need to say. Business as usual come the next day.
Thank you. I think it's wonderful. So
Yeah,
do
this is
like
a tough
join
topic.
us.
This is a tough topic that you have to deal with as a manager. Either directly or you have people responsible. But in your business, your company, even as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to approach these topics, because it's gonna happen. It doesn't matter, because people are like, oh, I run a great place, I'm kind. That's nothing to do with that. You have to make these tough business decisions.
So the viewers, join us, learn things, share, sign up, and you'll be amazed at what kind of solutions we can have from the mindset perspective, not from the skills perspective, from the mindset perspective. So thank you all very much, and I think I can safely say we are the only mindset reset training company in the USA. We can say that. So do join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.